Story 1. A significant number of things operate on the internet. Companies would face serious issues, governments would encounter challenges, and essential services like shops and hospitals would be affected. The economy itself would struggle, and everyone would experience difficulties. People often forget that the internet is not just Reddit and YouTube. It encompasses everything. Whether you like it or not, you are dependent on it functioning correctly. Story 2. Read books, watch DVDs, go on walks or bike rides, and play offline video games. It would be an adjustment, but I lived 25 years before the internet arrived. I would be okay. Story 3. Personally, nothing changed. Professionally, that is different since our computing systems utilize cloud storage, but none of that is my concern or specialty. Story 4. As an IT security professional, my entire career relies on the internet. I would also isolate myself at home as society could deteriorate. Good luck paying for anything when contactless payments fail, as all card machines depend on the internet, just like withdrawing cash from an ATM. Shops would be empty since all stock ordering is done online. Story 5. I lived in 2007 for 6 weeks without internet while waiting for a connection. After 4 weeks, I went to the library and used their computers for an hour to get my fix. I also read and went on outings. There were many activities to enjoy. Story 6. Sleep a lot, cook a variety of interesting dishes, read books, attend classical music concerts, invite friends and family over, go to the movies, play with my children, and go on road trips. Essentially, live more authentically. Story 7. Google why the internet went away. Let me think about that for a moment. I believe I made a mistake here. Story 8. Modern communication systems, including email, messaging, video calls, and social media, have transformed how we connect and share information. Story 9. Set up a new internet connection and broadcast it via Wi-Fi across my village, charging for access. People can receive free limited-time access by donating CDs and DVDs to be ripped and made available through Plex. Story 10. My job is related to the internet and cloud computing. My favorite pastimes include watching shows and movies, and playing games online. My side business is also internet-related. I live in a remote area due to working from home and buying my first house. I order groceries and my prescriptions online. I might need to buy supplies and weapons to prepare for potential survival situations. Story 11. Secure my home to prepare for the upcoming chaos. Without internet, most stores, banks, gas stations, and other services will shut down since nearly everything operates on an online system. People can become quite unsettled when denied such resources. Story 12. No internet would significantly impact the commercial construction industry. We would adapt, but much of what we do in the office relies on internet access. I was on a job site once where the general contractor's virtual private network went down, and the people in the office could not perform any of their job functions. Story 13. It is like that episode of The Simpsons when all the kids go back outside, rubbing their eyes in bewilderment. Story 14. Back to the library. I read online now, but I have no problem using my library card again. Story 15. The internet was out where I live for a week due to a hurricane, affecting even the cell phone towers. The biggest issue was that it became an all-cash society overnight, and banks were not dispensing cash. Unless you had cash before the storm, you did not have access to it afterward. Story 16. Depending on the weather and time of year, I either go for long walks or bike rides, tend to my garden, dig out my old video cassette recorder or digital versatile disc player to watch some classic movies, or spend time and effort cleaning or organizing my house. Story 17. Read books and play my collection of retro video games. Remember when older game systems didn't require the internet? You just inserted the game into the console, turned it on, and played immediately. Story 18. If the internet disappeared for a month, I would immediately look out the window and start planning all the interesting things I will do in the next month. Story 19. If the outage wasn't announced ahead of time, I would likely check all my devices to see if any of them can connect. Then I would reboot my access point. Story 20. I would try to get some cash. Depending on how much I get, I would purchase groceries, gas, and cigars. Then, I hope the electricity doesn't go out so I can start playing all my untouched offline games on Steam. Story 21. Fire up my Amiga 500 and spend a month on a nostalgia trip. I could make a YouTube video about it when the time is up. Story 22. I've been doing the same thing, reading. However, these kids are going to drive us crazy. Someone will figure out how to get it back on. Story 23. I would try to look up why the internet isn't working. After the feeling of frustration subsides, I would probably make a sandwich and pull out my Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It wouldn't affect my work in tree and plant healthcare, but it would stop the classes I'm taking for my bachelor's degree. Story 24. Spend the first hour in denial, then start writing laugh out loud on pieces of paper and handing them to people. Story 25. I regret getting rid of those cookbooks that were just taking up space in a cupboard. I never used them because I could easily look up recipes on my phone. Then, I would cry because I love to video call my daughter, who lives away from me. At least I can interact with her through technology. Story 26. Go to the nearest dollar store and buy 100 assorted helium balloons. Tie some to my mailbox and stand by the road, giving the rest away to children and passersby. Story 27. I would have to play my offline games, listen to my music files, watch my video movies, and use the cash from the cushion. Essentially, I wouldn't notice any difference except for being much more present for my family. Wait a minute. Flip the switch, please. Sounds like something awesome. Story 28. I will buy beautiful letter paper to write a letter to all my friends and ask for a phone line from the phone company. Story 29. Start gathering supplies ethically and lock myself down once I feel I have enough. That's not a joke about the world devolving into chaos without social media. Many systems depend on the internet, and we would all be in a difficult situation. Story 30. Dip out to the wilderness to avoid the chaos while the rest of the world falls apart. A month-long total internet outage would be catastrophic. Almost everything we do as a society relies on the internet, even at a local scale. The economy, infrastructure, military, medical services, everything depends on it. If the internet goes down for 2 hours in the office, it's chaos. Imagine a month without it. It would be very challenging, for sure. Story 31. As I am a system administrator for an online tool, I assume work would be relatively quiet, so I may take a nap. Story 32. The first thing I would do is take a nap. Then, if it wasn't back, I would check my internet service provider's app. I would be confused that both 4G and Wi-Fi were out. I might start feeling creeped out or panicky. If I simply knew it was out, I would immediately go to the grocery store and buy a lot of food, assuming that supply chain management would break down the moment the internet stopped being used to place orders. Story 33. I am concerned because all my accounts are online, and so is my business. Other than that, if I had a few weeks to prepare and withdraw cash beforehand, it would be a relief. Story 34. When I first arrived here, this area was all swamp. Everyone said I was foolish to build a castle on a swamp, but I built it anyway, just to show them. It sank into the swamp. So I built a second one. That sank into the swamp as well. I built a third. That burned down, fell over, then sank into the swamp. But the fourth one remained standing. Story 35. Go to the bank quickly to retrieve cash before everyone else. Banks have limited amounts of cash for security reasons. Without internet access, card payments are not possible. Story 36. Go to my bank and withdraw the maximum cash limit. I used to be a teller there and know they have offline procedures. I will withdraw cash to cover the basic necessities for a month from my emergency fund, primarily just food. My job requires internet access, so I wouldn't go to work. The real challenge begins when the internet is restored, and companies have to figure out how to handle missed automatic payments, such as rent, utilities, phone bills, and similar expenses. Story 37. I have almost 100 books that are sitting in my room, going unread. So, I would probably just continue to play old games like Minecraft, Morrowind, or Fear. Story 38. Call my boss and ask how I am supposed to do my job. Almost every job depends on the internet, even if you don't realize it. Story 39. For only a month, I sit and hope I have enough food to last me. Since I won't be able to access my bank account and my food supplier's distribution networks will be disrupted. If it lasts more than a month, I will need to look for a new job since I work remotely for a web-based software company in another country. I will also need to figure out how to live in this new reality. Story 40. Start a new digital-based telecommunications service, available by subscription only. How long before Elon reads this and moves forward on it? Story 41. The first thing I would do is check that the internet is really gone and it's not just my house or area. I'm sure they would have something on the news about it, and since my parents still receive some non-internet television channels, they would be the ones to hear about it. But putting that aside and assuming I knew it would be gone for a month, I would find the addresses I have of some of my online friends and write them letters to make sure they are okay. Some of them rely on the internet for at least some of their income, so I can only imagine things would be rough for them during that month. To be honest, a lot more would be affected than just the internet if this happened, but I didn't want to get into that. Story 42. Call family, ensure everyone is well, disconnect and just breathe. The amount of information we consume, especially distressing information, cannot possibly be good for us. I imagine mental health would improve drastically. Story 43. If I knew it was going to happen and then come back, I would prepare. If it were unplanned, I would get ready for living off the grid. Story 44. Some of us were alive before the internet. This isn't as profound or perplexing as you might think. It simply reveals your reliance on the internet. Try putting your phone away and going outside. Story 45. I will likely have many board game parties and pajama sleepovers. I might practice more guitar and leather crafting. I plan to improve my skills and dedicate more time to my hobbies. Story 46. I still have my music files, compact discs, art books, sketchbooks, and movie collection. I'll just start with any of those. We didn't have home internet in our house until 2010, so I'm fine with that. No big deal. Story 47. Go on with my life. Pretend it is the early 1990s. Knock on my friends' doors and ask them if they want to ride bikes. Story 48. Panic about how to contact my partner on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. I write him multiple letters. Story 49. Just locally? Without the internet, my job would be impossible, so I will temporarily relocate. Everywhere? The entire world I live in relies on it to function, so I guess I should prepare for the whole system to fall apart pretty quickly. Story 50. Take steps to ensure it never returns. The internet is an incredible tool, but I don't think humanity was prepared for it. Story 51. Cry a little because I lost access to all my music. Then, I guess I will head out to find a high-fidelity system and somewhere that still sells CDs. Story 52. Learn to live without it while it is outside my will. It can be a rare lifestyle choice after they restored the connection to deception. Story 53. If we're talking purely entertainment, I'd be fine. I would still be able to game, write, read, and crochet. I've also been wanting to try embroidery. However, on a large scale, the consequences would be catastrophic for society. A lot of infrastructure these days relies on the internet. It is concerning. Story 54. Buy some nice writing paper to handwrite old-fashioned letters to my child each week, wherever they currently are, and try not to feel lonely since I am housebound. The internet is my social life. Oh, and I suppose I can send them a text message several times a day instead. Story 55. I would click refresh, then reboot. I would try my tablet, then my laptop. Next, I would go back to my phone and try it again. I would turn off Wi-Fi and try the 5G, then try the tablet again. I would probably repeat those steps hourly for the next 30 days. Story 56. Pull out my books. I have several downloaded on my phone and a few physical books. Since I am in Mexico, it is hard to find books in English. There have been several days and nights where I read instead of being on the internet. I even have a little nightlight that is just bright enough to read without disturbing others who are asleep. Story 57. How do you know it will only be gone for a month? Is that declared beforehand? Or do we descend into chaos before it is suddenly returned to us? Story 58. Figure out how to obtain a reliable source of food and water now that I no longer have access to any of my funds. Story 59. Everything I am doing now requires just a little more time for other tasks. However, I look up any questions I have during the day, such as what bird this is, who wrote this psalm, or when I should lay down grass seed. Not being able to learn right away would drive me crazy. Story 60. I make a lot of phone calls. All my friends live 1.5 to 2 hours away from me. Some of them I really care about, so I want to ensure they are okay. My job relies on the internet, so I will stay updated with my supervisor. Story 61. Honestly, I would pack my cars and take my family out of the city for a few months because that would have worse consequences than a nuclear bomb dropping on New York. It would take much longer than a year for the world to recover from losing it for a month, but the mass starvation, car wrecks, economic collapse, and power plant explosions would likely settle into a general catastrophe instead of an active war zone a month or two after the internet came back. Story 62. I have about 4 terabytes of books saved on a few spare hard drives and several gigabytes of ROMs. I would probably default to those. If not, I would go outside and work on my garden, weather permitting. Story 63. This is a question that needs reflection. I have many things to do that I have not been addressing. Thank you for the wake-up call. Story 64. Do you remember the King of the Hill episode titled Grand Theft Arlen, where the characters created a game similar to Grand Theft Auto but based on Strickland propane? When Hank became addicted to it, Peggy managed to end the game, and Hank said, "It feels good to blink." I laughed to myself because I experienced a similar situation. I don't remember the specifics, but I truly enjoyed it. And once it was over, I blinked and felt like my eyelids were struggling to close over my dry eyes. I never thought that blinking would feel good, but it's something I try to remember and appreciate occasionally. Story 65. I deliberately deafen myself because I am certain many children in my area would be extremely upset over the lack of media access. Story 66. Swipe down to refresh the page. Spend most of the next month force closing and reopening internet-based apps while attempting to refresh them. Click on the mobile data button a few times and repeatedly soft and hard reset my phone. Also, try searching for Verizon Network Outage 2025 on my home PC. Story 67. Besides losing access to the ability to satisfy my curiosity through search engines and social media platforms, not much changed for me. I still have a couple of thousand audiobooks saved locally, and it would probably take a year or two before I got bored of re-listening to any of my books. I also have about 400,000 ebooks saved. I would be perfectly fine as long as my phone didn't break. Story 68. Quickly ensure I have enough food and supplies, then lie low. Things could get ugly quickly. Story 69. Can we still text? My girlfriend is in a long-distance relationship, so I guess I would send her a letter or drive down there. Story 70. Touching grass for real. I'm the kind of person who uses the internet and devices when I need to. My phone and devices do not control my life at all, and it's much better for me. Story 71. Go back to the days of survival. Reading and watching television. We lived as children like kings and queens. With our television trays and a lot of magazines in everyone's bathrooms, we didn't realize how precious those times were. Story 72. Read all my books. I will eventually delete Reddit, but it provides a great overview of human behavior, unusual collections, empathy, and ignorance. Story 73. Honestly, in the first 5 minutes, I sighed in relief. Then I panicked, realizing that we have digitized everything and are now back in the old ages. Story 74. Fortify my rental house. Everything is online now. A month without internet globally would create chaos within hours and escalate beyond repair within a week. It's not the early 1990s anymore. Story 75. Execute the disaster plan. Suddenly losing internet access worldwide could lead to a mass casualty event that would make a typical zombie apocalypse seem like a pleasant morning stroll. Story 76. Celebrate and crack open a beer. I lived my first 30 years without internet. A month or the rest of my lifetime is no problem. Story 77, probably live life. I feel like before the internet, when I was a child, it was easier to communicate with others and have a genuine conversation. Now everything is digitalized. So yes, that is probably what I would do. Story 78. Well, my job is internet-based. I would take a sabbatical, travel, see family and friends, complete several home projects, get a 30-day pass for a local gym, and volunteer at my local food bank. Story 79. I have sat for hours in a boat, forgetting where I am. I am not even sure I am conscious half the time of what I am doing when I am fishing sometimes. Story 80. I finally had the chance to read all the books I keep buying, only to put them on the shelf after reading 10 to 20 pages. Story 81. It wouldn't bother me except for school, but I am sitting here thinking about how many people would be out of a job. Story 82. Honestly, I guess I would have to buy cable television again and get a paper map to have in my car. Otherwise, I'm good. Story 83. If I knew it was going away, I would download as many important files as I could, collect people's phone numbers, and ensure my favorite games could run offline. If I didn't know it was going away, I would visit my local music store to buy a CD player and CDs and try to find friends who could send me files through USB. Story 84. I would be unemployed, but my blood pressure would likely drop, and my overall well-being would probably improve. Story 85. The immediate withdrawal symptoms would be difficult. Most of my hobbies and activities rely on the internet to ping a server or access a license. I imagine I would occupy myself with chores and inevitably start writing and reading more. Story 86. I would do what I need to do. I don't have internet at home, but I do on my phone. I hardly get online, mostly just to check Facebook or Instagram. I would write my book and engage in outdoor activities. I love to do diamond painting, and I would relax and watch movies. I'm an old soul, even though I'm not old. I just prefer the older ways of doing things. Story 87. Get scared. It sounds like an addicted teenager, but there is nothing that would work without the internet. You can't even withdraw money or pay bills. I would definitely lose my job, and most people would too. No company would be able to survive 1 month without the internet. Story 88. Honestly, after the initial panic, I would probably just go outside more. Maybe pick up a book, actually finish some projects, or finally get around to all the things I never have time for. But let's be real, the first few days would be rough. No memes, no instant answers, no distractions, just pure, raw reality. Story 89. My medical school would fall apart. The entire medical field would collapse. No one knows everything. I do not want to live in a world where I have to learn everything in medical school by reading books and copying notes from a board for 8 hours a day until my hand falls off. Story 90. I am very annoyed as I use it for different things like GPS, since I have no sense of direction. However, I will learn how to cope without it and focus on writing and crafts. Story 91. The first thing is to wait nearly a day until I call the provider, where they tell me that everyone's internet is down and not coming back. Anyway, I would just watch YouTube for the rest of the month until that situation is over. No, I would replay single-player games or go through my backlog of installed but unplayed single-player games. Story 92. The first thing most people would do is try to fix the internet and figure out what is going on. Story 93. I can finally watch the videos I have collected. There are thousands of hours worth watching. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.